As-salaam wa-alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Year 6 of the 17 Verses podcast. I'm your host, Maher Haq. In this podcast, we take a small selection from the Quran every day and recite it to you in plain English, so you can get a small slice of God's word while you go about your day. By averaging 17 verses per day, we're able to break the Quran down into manageable pieces and finish it in 1 year. If you enjoy the podcast, please help spread the word. Tell your friends and family, subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts, and write us a review. Show notes and a text episode can be found at 17verses.com. That's the numbers 17verses.com. Today's selection is from Surah 2, Al-Baqarah, or the Cow, verses 211 through 221. These verses discuss the position of believers versus disbelievers on the Day of Judgment, the obligation of charity in the name of Allah, prohibition against fighting during Ramadan, the prohibition against drinking and gambling, dealing with orphans justly, and marrying non-Muslim men or women. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Ask the children of Israel how many clear-cut signs we have given them. Anyone who substitutes the favor of Allah after it has come to him should know that Allah is strict in retribution. The life of this world is charming to those who are unbelievers, and they mock at those who believe. But they forget that those who fear Allah will rank above them on the day of resurrection. Allah gives sustenance without measure to whom He wants. Mankind was one nation, having one religion. Later, when people invented other religions, Allah appointed prophets as bearers of good news and warnings, and revealed to them the book with true guidance to settle the matters of dispute between mankind. But the very people to whom it was given started disputes after the clear arguments had come to them, because of rivalry between one another. Allah has guided the believers by His will to the truth in those matters in which they had differences. Allah guides whom He pleases towards the right way. Do you think that you will enter paradise without any trials, while you have known the examples of those who have passed away before you? They were afflicted with suffering and adversity, and were so violently shaken up that even the messenger and the believers with him cried out, "When will Allah's help come?" Then they were comforted with the words, "Be aware, Allah's help is ever close." They ask you what they should spend in charity. Say, whatever you spend with a good heart, give it to parents, relatives, orphans, the helpless, and travelers in need. Whatever good you do, Allah is aware of it. Fighting has been made obligatory for you, much to your dislike. It is quite possible that something which you don't like is good for you, and something which you love is bad for you. Allah knows, and you do not. They ask you about war in the sacred month, or the month of Ramadan. Tell them, fighting in this month is a heinous offense, but to prevent from the path of Allah, to deny Him, to prevent access and expel His worshippers from the sacred mosque, or the Kaaba, is a more severe crime, since mischief is worse than killing in His sight. As for unbelievers, they will not cease fighting until they succeed in turning you back from your religion if they can. And if any of you turns back from his religion and dies an unbeliever, his deeds will become void in this life and in the hereafter. He will be the inmate of the hellfire to live therein forever. Surely those who are believers and migrated and struggled in the path of Allah, they can hope for the mercy of Allah, and Allah is forgiving and merciful. They ask you about drinking and gambling. Tell them, there is great sin in both, although there may be some benefit for men, but the sin is greater than the benefit. They ask you what they should spend. Tell them, whatever you can. Thus Allah makes His revelations clear to you, so that you may reflect upon this world and the hereafter. They ask you about orphans. Tell them, it is best to deal with them justly. You may become co-partners with them. After all, they are your brethren. Allah knows who means harm and also who means their welfare. If Allah had wanted, He could be hard on you in this matter, for surely Allah is mighty and wise. Do not marry mushrik women, that is, women who associate others with Allah, until they become believers. A believing slave woman is better than a free mushrik woman, even though she may be more attractive to you. Likewise, do not marry mushrik men until they become believers. A believing slave is better than a free mushrik, even though he may be more pleasing to you. These mushrikeen invite you to the hellfire, while Allah invites you towards paradise and forgiveness by His grace. He makes His revelations clear to mankind, so that they may take heed. Ameen. This concludes today's episode of the 17 Verses podcast. I hope that this selection helps increase your understanding of the Holy Quran just a little bit. If you like the podcast, you can subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher and write us a review. Or you can grab the RSS feed and put it into your own podcast app. The show notes, including a text version of this episode, can be found by going to 17verses.com. That's the numbers 17, VERSES.com. Thank you, and be well.